Cool. Yeah. So like Alex said, my name is Ramzi BenSaid. I'm a data science consultant at Google Cloud. I work a lot on our sports partnerships, and I do a lot with folks at MIT. So it's nice to be back in Cambridge. And like Alex also said, we'll be talking about the football pier. Funny enough, we've had Lori talking about soccer, Paul talking about the verbiage here, and now you've got an American talking about football, which I clearly mean soccer by. But that's because this was in the UK. This was at Google Cloud Next 2019, which is a big Google Cloud conference. And so what the football pier was an interactive installation at the conference. It was all under our partnership, which Alok also mentioned, with the FA, the English Football Association. So here you can kind of see the space we had. There's a field, you can see a net, as well as a screen over on the left underneath that football pier sort of label. And so the general experience was you walk up, you take 3 penalty kicks. There's this dashboard you're seeing now is the screen that was over to the left, where you've got some stats we've taken and collected from your kicking. And then finally, when you've gotten the entire walkthrough from myself or one of my colleagues there, you get a little card to take home with you with a link to a Colab notebook where you can go in and sort of take a bit of a deeper dive into the stats we collected about your kicking. And it's also a fun little thing. So what hardware was required? This is kind of my favorite part about this, how lightweight it all was. This is really kind of it. Besides we obviously needed the goal, but the only hardware we had was 3 Pixel 4 cameras. And we did something kind of similar at Next a few years ago in San Francisco, where we had 34 motion capture cameras rigged up all around this giant cage. And then to do something like this with only 3 Pixel cameras, the difference was serious. And it was just awesome how little was needed to get it done. And so the little explanation of where they all were, there was one on the dugout behind the shooter, one from a side profile, and then the third was sort of trained on the kicker, like run-up area. And this is what each of those various different angles looked like. And so the use cases for each, the goal camera behind on the dugout was for accuracy. The side camera, if you see the ball just sort of flash through there, we used to generate a power statistic. And the kicker camera we used to generate a style metric. And I'll get into each of those a little bit more later. But before that, I'll just sort of give a high level run through of all the services we use to make that happen. So on the left, we've got the 3 Pixel cameras. We had a custom app built that it was really just start and stop. You start the video, you stop the video. When it stops, it gets sent into Google Cloud Storage. As soon as it hits Google Cloud Storage, that triggers a cloud function, which was running some models we had trained, AutoML models, as well as using the Cloud Video Intelligence API. Then once all of that was done, the results were pushed to Firestore. Firestore is a live updating NoSQL database, really good for app development, anything that has to happen live. That was powering the dashboard you saw before that you can also see here. And then it was also pushing results to PubSub. And from PubSub, they were pushing to BigQuery. Again, I mentioned on the sticker, you had a link to a Colab notebook where you could go in, analyze your own data, sort of play around with it. So that was sort of the 30-second walkthrough of what we used to build this. The pieces I'm going to focus on a little bit more are the AutoML vision detection and AutoML vision object detection, as well as the Cloud Video Intelligence API. So the AutoML object tracking piece, we trained models to be able to pick out a soccer ball. Now, we potentially could have used the Video Intelligence API because it's pre-trained to pick up certain objects, but even at 240 frames a second, there were times that the ball became this really elongated, looked more like an American football than a soccer ball at times. So we trained our own model for this. This is all done in the Google Cloud UI. You feed it labeled images and then train a model. I think it took about an hour and a half to train the model on 300 images with Not all of them were labeled. Some of them were saying there is no ball in this image. So that gave us our ball detection models. And like I said, it's all in the UI. So you train the model here. You can even see it says train. And then when you get to test and use, it'll bring up this little code snippet for you to take and put in your own code. Now the video intelligence API piece is how we were doing pose estimation for the style piece. And you can see, it's a couple dozen lines of code inputting a library. And then you go from a video to down in the bottom right, you see it's identified different body parts and it's giving you coordinates. Catherine's smiling because she had to do a whole lot more to get that done, and you'll hear about that later. So now at this point in the pipeline, we've collected a whole bunch of data on all of these shooters using 2 AutoML models, or we tried a couple different ones, as well as the video intelligence API. So now we have data to generate accuracy, power, and style metrics. The accuracy piece, again, from that back camera angle, which I'll just go back to. Really go all the way back here. So the accuracy score was calculated based on the distance from where your shot ends to those 2 red X targets. This is only one of them. The power metric came based on how quickly the ball progressed through that side angle piece. And then finally, the style piece came from how different your kicking pose was compared to, I think we had 50 kicks that we used to train and just sort of get differentiation scores. Now, skipping back up to where I was, I'll talk a little bit about the analysis side. PubSub would just be listening to that Firestore database, and as soon as anything happened there, it would get pushed through PubSub into BigQuery, and then, like I said, there's the Colab notebook at the end. And so a few things I want to highlight here about kind of why this all just was, why this was a cool thing to do, besides the fact that it offered something different for people to come and do at a massive tech conference. The minimal overhead, which I kind of highlighted before, I think is really awesome. And I mean that from both the hardware and software standpoints. The fact that we did this with just 3 pixel phone cameras is pretty cool. Everyone in this room, everyone listening has the hardware capabilities to go and do something like this. Then using AutoML and using the Cloud Video Intelligence API, you don't have to have a PhD to use a model that's doing this object detection. You can take advantage of Google's history with this stuff, and it saves you time in the development. It also allowed us to do this really quick. Someone would go take their 3 kicks, and by the time they walked over to that screen, their data was loaded right there. And then there's plenty of other use cases that we could get into, insurance, manufacturing, but as this is a sports first piece, I don't think we really have to get into that stuff. So that's sort of the walkthrough of what we did at the football pier. Happy to take any questions if anybody has any. Catherine. Oh.
Hi, Ramzi. When will that lovely pose extraction be available via the cloud platform?
Soon. Soon. I'm going to let Olo take this one.
I checked with the product manager yesterday. Soon. No, it should be like within days or weeks. That's what so.
Anybody else? Cool.
Video conference, folks. Questions for Ramzi?
Thanks, Ramzi.